I mix what I like, 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 what I like.
Steve Biko is one of the main important um, thinkers in South Africa and also a revolutionary. In the 70s, he formed a formidable movement, Black Consciousness movement. In fact, he is the Black Consciousness thinker in the country, who through his teachings and his organization, we saw in 1976 the Black Power movement actually shaking the apartheid regime to its roots, and that gave us a chance to, in the 80s in South Africa, organize against the whole settlement that ultimately delivered the 1994 so-called democratic settlement. But you have to understand, the big moment really within the 70s is the Black Consciousness movement. And as you know, Black Consciousness in South Africa was an interpretation of already what was happening in the world, particularly in the U.S., the Black Panther moment. Biko himself says that he was hugely influenced by people like Stokely Carmichael and their thinking. They were reading Fanon, they were reading what was happening in the U.S., and some of the discourses of Black consciousness almost supplanted directly from the U.S. because we are a white supremacist society, just like it is in the U.S. It makes a lot of sense that there was this cross-pollination. The most important thing to remember about the South African situation is that once Biko was married in 1977, this movement found itself under attack both internally and externally. Incidentally, it was attacked internally in South Africa by the other component of the liberation movement, which is associated with Nelson Mandela, the ANC. Remember, the ANC does not subscribe to the ideas of Black consciousness. Rather, it is involved in this kind of race denialism and multi-racialism, which says that we are all equal and South Africa belongs to all. And these ideas of Black consciousness that put Black people first, that insist that South Africa is a colonial, such a colonial reality, have been rejected. In fact, a lot of people died, by the way, in that conflict. But in 1994, Biko's movement, the Black consciousness movement, had been decimated by both the external and internal forces. Therefore, the movement which took over and gave us this so-called democracy was Nelson Mandela's movement, and that movement does not put Black people first. After 20 years, we see the re-emergence in a powerful way of Black consciousness ideas, and Steve Biko's ideas are today the most important organizing ideas and even part of the analysis of what has gone wrong in the country. Biko is alive today. If you look at the student movement that this year has brought the whole country to a standstill, they started calling for decolonization, bringing down the colonial statues which were in the universities, and they then moved on to call for fees must fall, free education. But these movements, if you look at them, they're all of them very clear about being Black consciousness and being led by Black consciousness ideas, and Biko is a big figure. And ourselves, we have moved away from, or broken away from another movement which we are part of, and to reclaim this space of Black consciousness and Steve Biko and radical Pan-Africanism. In Azania today, the ideas of Biko provide the best hope, and more of our people are going back to Biko. So, because it's a racist society, because 1994 was just like an Obama moment in the U.S. where you got a black guy who sits in the White House, but does not change the structure of society. That's what has happened here. Nelson Mandela occupies exactly the same position as President Obama in the U.S. Nothing has changed. Still landless. 20 years later, if you look at the economic structure where we live, we're still in the ghettos. White people still have everything in South Africa. Democracy does not work for us. Biko had warned about this, has written about this, and now his ideas, again, are helping us to reorganize ourselves to fight for what we believe is going to be true liberation.
We see a completely non-racial society. We don't believe, for instance, in the so-called guarantees for minority rights. because guaranteeing minority rights implies recognition of portions of the community on a race basis. We believe that in our country there shall be no minority, there shall be no majority, there shall just be people. And those people will have the same status before the law, and they will have the same political rights before the law. So in a sense, it will be a completely non-racial egalitarian society.
But will the vast number of blacks, after all their experiences, be able to live a life without giving vent to feelings of revenge, of
yes, we believe it is the duty of the vanguard political movement which brings about change to educate people's outlooks. I mean, in the same way that blacks have never lived in a socialist economic system, they've got to learn to live in one. In the same way that they've always lived in a racially divided society, they've got to learn to live in a non-racial society. They've got many things to learn, and all these must be brought to them and explained to the people by the vanguard movement, which is leading the revolution.
I mix what I like, what I like, what I like, what I like, what I like.